Welcome back. Let's talk about love. And let's talk about how you even think about love. A lot of people know that their connection to money, for example, is really shaped by how they grew up. Like, money doesn't grow on trees, the fighting of the parents because there was a lack of it, that feeling of it always going to get taken away. All of those things come from usually experiences early on in life, and that is also true when it comes to love. So whether you're feeling unworthy of love or commitment, whether you feel like you need love and you feel afraid of it at the same time, whether you feel that you gravitate always to that same kind of people that are just not really right for you, but you cannot help it, or whether you gave up on love and just feel like it's not for me, all of those things have some deeper subconscious root causes, and they have to do with how your subconscious perceives love. And so let's look at those filters, those beliefs that are distorting how you see yourself and how you see potential partners and how you see relationships in general, and ask yourself a few questions. So for example, what, as I said before the breaks, were your role models for love? How, for example, were your parents or maybe your uncles and aunts? And what did you observe? Did you see fighting? Were you a child of a divorced family? Did the parents get divorced? Were they maybe cold to each other? Was there a lot of bickering? Was there power play? One had to be dominant, passive aggressiveness, tears, or maybe you had a really nice experience with love all around you. But chances are that you probably have seen not necessarily the best side of love when you struggle with finding love yourself. Now, I also wonder, how did you feel that this love experience that you saw was fed back to you? When you think about how people showed love, were they the same way? Maybe cold, neglectful, always busy, never really feeling present? Was there a conditional way of feeling loved? Only when you were pretty, only when you were slim, only when you were good in school, that's when you got a sense of being loved or a sense of being approved of. And how did that make you feel about your lovability? And what, when you look back at your relationships, what did you feel like are the patterns that started early in your life and how you experienced people loving each other and how you experienced being loved? How did these patterns repeat themselves? Did you see that there are certain ways on where you believed only to be loved conditionally, or you believed that people are losing interest, or you believed that somehow you need to be quiet and you cannot really show yourself? Look at those patterns and just notice how certain ways of feeling and thinking and acting may have just continuously repeated themselves. And when you look at those patterns, you can also understand that the common denominator is you, and there is a way for you to resolve those patterns. And we'll talk about this in a moment. But I would like you also to, because when we are looking for something, right, we need to know what we are looking for. So I would like you to spend a moment and just finish those 3 simple sentences. I know I am loved when. I show love to my partner by. And the most important aspect of love is, the interesting thing is that many people are making lists. A friend of mine made a list of 100 aspects he was looking in the perfect woman he would want to marry. And he actually miraculously found that person. Every box was checked off. I mean, you can imagine 100, it's not bad. But this was a totally wrong person. After just a while, he felt like, that's not fitting. There is something wrong. I mean, everything is exactly like I wanted it, but something is missing. And it dawned on him what he didn't really focus on was on how he wanted to feel, how he wanted to experience love. He only focused on what he thought that person needs to be in order to love her, but he didn't think the other way around. He didn't think about what do I really want to feel? What do I want to experience? How do I want to have love in my life? And this is something we just want to be more aware of. Now, part of the issue with the distortion of love comes, as I said before, from the subconscious mind. And there is a archetype, a protective archetype, which is basically a part of the subconscious mind that I want to talk about for a moment. And that archetype is called the lover. And it is a protective archetype because it believes that the salvation, the end of all suffering, the security and that sense of belonging all only comes from finding that loving mate to share your life with. Now, the lover has a few hallmarks that usually make love extremely challenging and painful. Because a lover is looking for love and then finding it in someone, and it is holding on to that person for dear life. The lover is willing to give and overgive. The lover is willing to forgive and let go of any kind of shortcomings or maybe obvious misconducts and simply says, oh, it's not so bad. Being with this person makes me feel so good, so it's better to just ignore anything else. I have worked with people that were literally together with narcissists and sociopaths that were betraying them over and over, not only behind them back, but at times overtly. And that person, that lover archetype, was still finding excuses why it was okay. So it's again, this pattern of love from that person was like the oxygen that they needed to live with. And anything without it was not even fathomable. It was absolutely, completely out of their imagination. No matter how much it hurts, that loyalty was that most important part. Now, looking back at where this came from, that archetype, that survival pattern, that lover had a lot to do with the upbringing, of course, and it is often connected to someone who has been abused, molested, and shown in some ways that love is painful and that love is not something they can simply expect. So they go into those relationships with a deep void, with a great lack, and they feel the need to fill this lack and this void from someone outside, someone who potentially has enough love to make them for the first time feel wanted and feel embraced and feel seen. And in some ways that becomes then the addiction, the dependency, because they never have learned to give this to themselves. Now, it's a very disempowering pattern because ultimately it just leads to that desire to give more and more, to bargain more and more of oneself to get that love from this other person. And if you are struggling with a subconscious pattern like this, if you're feeling that love is something that you don't ever find inside, but you only have to get from the outside and you need to get it for dear life, it feels almost like a drug, like an addiction, give me a call, because this is something you can overcome. But it's also something where love and the idea of what love is can become extremely self-destructive. One of my clients, before she started working with me, lost everything because of it. She lost her business, she lost her friend, she lost her health, she lost her sense of self, and all because she had been in that pattern that she couldn't get out of it. And she fell into the hands of a guy who completely took advantage of it. And you may know people like that that have really suffered from that distortion of love. Now, how can we get a better relationship to love? How can we overcome that? When we come back, we will do a little meditation slash affirmation that you may be able to listen to over and over again, just to let your subconscious get a different perspective on love. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.